Great, thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Benoît, for having me. And welcome to all of you. I understand we have over 30 countries represented, which we think is, from the onset, a mark of success of the gathering. I, as was introduced by Andrew, work in UNICEF's supply division, which is our headquarter function for supply chain, even though it's called supply. I spent just under 10 years in the private sector working in manufacturing and then in business development, and then for the last 16 years have worked on supply chain, primarily for health sectors, but not only, but based in UNICEF in supply. And upon reflection, when I look back over what has occurred during this period of time, in my head I had a debate of, have we evolved or have we revolutionized what's happening in supply chain? And I think to some extent we can reflect back on papers of military logistics and things of the like that we draw inspiration from and that help us think of ways to do our current work. But really I do think for as long of a history as moving goods to locations and to people, as long as of a history as that has, for sure I think in the last 10 years this sector has really been or is in the midst of a revolution. I think the way we approach supply chain as a professional discipline, I was reading that now there are, of course, universities that have supply chain as a specific area of education and of degree, and they compete to see who is the top rated program. And we as practitioners can build from their research and their ideas and the students that come out of them. But if we have been in this for some years, I think we ourselves have noticed, at least I have, in the approach and the way I think of supply chains. I think 10 years ago we were looking at supply chains and not even using the term necessarily, but each of the components. We were thinking about how goods are defined, how they're funded, how they are procured, how they are transported, how they're warehoused, how they are delivered to the end user. And I think all that is good and still very important to optimize and improve each segment of what we now call the supply chain. But I think what has perhaps in my mind really been the biggest change between 10 years ago and today is that we look at the interfaces between these. We look at the whole end-to-end. We look at it as a professional discipline, not just each of the components, so not just from a buying perspective or a warehousing or distribution, but the whole supply chain. And I think we see on one hand, the returns that gives vis-a-vis maybe more efficiency, but in our context, it's really the most important thing is that supplies reach kids and the beneficiaries. And that's a lot of work. We know that no supply chain is the same, that to some extent they all need to have some similar characteristics, but products require some specificity. The nature of what we're moving requires special attention, but also the locations where we're delivering. So within a national supply system, there obviously would be different nuances. And for me, it's why it's so important that countries are here. I think from UNICEF, we can bring our perspective of supply chain, but really what you deal with in terms of maybe lack of control of some of the funding or the disbursements of funds through your own budget and parliamentary systems, that even that alone can cause a huge impact on whether a supply chain functions or not, whether or not you get sufficiently resourced with people, whether or not you are exchanging practices, whether or not you have a functioning LMIS system, whether or not you have developed analytical skills so that you're looking to make evidence-based decision making. And I think, when I looked through the agenda, all of these things are covered. And the best thing is that there's presentations from academia, from countries, from multilateral organizations. And it's really through this robust exchange that we will improve. I think by now we all know that there is no silver bullet, there's no quick fix to any of this. It requires day in and day out hard work, creativity, it requires a commitment and a level of professionalism that we think organizations such as People That Deliver are on the forefront of moving us toward. Maybe the last thing I'll say is the last couple of weeks I have spent some time in West Africa, including in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And I was really struck by the supply chains that we saw there. And on one hand, the urgency, the necessity of supplies that need to be distributed is so high that supply chains are functioning, that we are seeing the really frontline protective wear for those working in ETUs and ETCs being delivered. It's pretty amazing to see. For what it's worth, we're talking about a new product, a personal protective equipment that has maybe 8 or 9 different components that are coming in from different sources that need to be in sufficient quantity at a treatment center, and that prior to a few months ago were not being distributed through these supply chains. They were not a standard product. Now these are standard products. If I take Sierra Leone alone, the demand for those products has gone from 0 to the need to distribute over 70,000 sets per week. It's a lot of new distribution points and new products, which can really test a supply chain. And to watch our colleagues in that country with all of the complexities and fears that exist make sure that these products are delivered is really humbling. But these are being delivered to more like the ETUs and these health points, and it's working. In contrast, we also see the new labs that are being established, or the expanded laboratory capacity, and watching the supply chain for them really at this point not yet be in place. A person who is tested for Ebola, the commitment is that they would have a response within 24 hours. The reality is this is taking 5 days if it's efficient, and sometimes 10 to 12 days. And in 50% of cases in some labs, they cannot identify who the test belonged to. And that is because you have pieces of paper attending with the specimen that have to be moved via very long distances with very difficult roads in a very short period of time. And so you look at the complexities of delivering a very small item. It's not bulky, it doesn't require much storage, but it requires speed, it requires agility, it requires motorcycles, not trucks. It's a really amazing to look at that system and how, as of yet, it's failing people. And I think one of the things that marks just looking at the supply chains is where there has been investment, where the national supply chain is being used and can be adapted, it is working, and where something wholly new is being developed, and probably labs are not used to thinking about supply chains. And so this is where we're seeing it be much more weak. And I will end with, really the key thing of not only do we need to ourselves, I'm speaking to the converted, if I can use that phrase, we all are so, we're here because we believe in the importance of this work, but we also have to carry that message to our colleagues. In the case of these countries, it's, how do we sit down with the people leading the lab and letting them know how important this is, similar in these contexts to the burial teams. So, and we can see how much a supply chain in this case saves lives, determines an outcome for a person or not. So, huge respect for all of the work that everyone does, and I think together all sectors in the future will understand the importance of designing supply chains as programs change, and also making sure they work so that the health benefits can be realized by all. Thank you.
Thank you.